Welcome to the USU Career Studio podcast that helps you navigate your career path. And thanks for joining us for our Friday face-to-face episode. My name is Tatyana Felt. I'm your host. And today we're very excited to have Rachel Broadbent, program coordinator for horticulture, joining us today. Great to have you, Rachel. Yeah. We're going to start with your bio. As a seventh generation Utah, Rachel grew up surrounded by apple orchards in Utah Valley. She comes from a long line of farmers and educators. Her favorite things to do are garden, read fiction, cook, eat local foods, kayak, backpack, look at trees, bike around, and travel. She's on the executive committee and is the editor of Arbor Essence for the International Society of Arboriculture, Utah chapter. Rachel studied landscape and ornamental horticulture with a minor in botany at Brigham Young University. She started on her path in arboriculture by working on the BYU Grounds Department tree crew. After graduation, Rachel moved to San Diego to work for the Davie Resource Group. After 5 years in California, DRG asked her to move to Washington State. She worked in arboriculture 17 plus years before returning to graduate school in urban planning with a focus on urban arboriculture and urban agriculture. It has been a lifelong dream to teach horticulture and arboriculture courses. She's very happy to be leading that dream at USU's Salt Lake statewide campus in Taylorsville. And one fun fact about you, you have a Vandercook printing press and do custom letterpress printing for fun and a little profit.
Yes.
Tell us more a little bit about that. Yeah.
Well, I actually first went into horticulture for design, landscape design, because I like design. And so when I went back to graduate school, because I considered that my real job going to school, I thought, I can do a fun job, So I found a local letterpress in Salt Lake City that was hiring for shop help. And so I got a job there. And then slowly, as I worked there longer and longer, I became a printer and just learned how to do letterpress printing. And then at a certain point, I really wanted one of my own. They're because they were made, all of them are quite old. They're a limited quantity. And so to get one is quite an accomplishment. But I lucked out. I knew somebody who was selling one in the area and I was able to get it, because sometimes people will find them, but they literally weigh a ton. And so shipping can be very expensive. So even if you can find them, they can be hard, but I was able to find one locally. And so, I still have it. And it's been 15 plus years that I've had it. And it's a fun creative outlet.
No, that's really cool. I actually had to be honest with you, I had to look it up, what it was. And it's pretty big machine.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Moving it around, I've had to use a crane, and now it's on this weird little pallet thing on wheels to make it a little easier, but yeah.
No, I think that's really cool. Okay. Well, our topic today is the engagement, class engagement, right? And so there are many obvious benefits for students that are engaged in their higher ed, right? Like academic performance, the likelihood of them staying enrolled and graduating on time, right, is higher, and probably workforce readiness. But today I want to focus on unintended benefits of class engagement with you, and talking about your career journey and your own experiences that you've seen and the unintended benefits.
Okay.
For your students. So my first question is, you've had such an interesting journey from working on BYU's tree crew to teaching at USU. What unexpected connections or opportunities came from being actively engaged in your own college classes?
Yeah. And as we talk about this, you're going to hear the same names over and over again, because those names have started with me in my college experience, and they've continued as being relevant and important in my career. So when I first started school, I was at BYU, and it was my arboriculture class, actually. And my professor, Dr. Phil Allen, we had a guest speaker come in, and it was Max Darrington, who was the campus arborist for BYU. And he came and spoke with us, and he mentioned that he had students on his tree crew. And I was really enjoying the class in arboriculture. But again, as I mentioned, I was going in for landscape design. That's because I love design, because I love art. that was what I was planning to do with it. And so when Max mentioned that he hired students to work on the tree crew, it piqued my interest. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And I think I applied, and I don't remember anyway, or maybe I even had to apply twice. But at some point, I got hired on the tree crew. And by that, and that changed my entire trajectory from going to design to going towards arboriculture. And it wouldn't have happened had I not been going to class, and been participating and being willing to be like, oh, that's interesting. I want to try it.
Yeah. And being proactive, like, and applying for a job. That sounded interesting. I like it. Yeah, pretty nice.
And I feel really lucky too, because I think a lot of people really wanted to try it too.
Oh, really? So it was pretty competitive. I'm glad you did.
Me too.
Look at that. So after 17 plus years in the field before heading back to school, what would you tell students about how participating in class actually helps in the real world?
I think engagement matters regardless of where you are. Now, the truth is we all have limited resources sometimes, and we can't always fully engage in everything we do, because sometimes we have lower energy levels and we have to, that's just the reality of life. But I think when you find things that you're passionate about and you get engaged in those things, those are the paths that, call to you. And those are the paths that I think take us where we're going to be most successful. And so I think it's worth finding those finding the resources, or using what resources we have to be engaged in the things that really speak to us, because those are the ones that are going to take us where, we'll find success and real happiness in our lives.
Okay, awesome. I'm curious about your transition from industry back to education. Was there a particular classroom experience or mentor during your own education that influenced your teaching style today?
Well, as you mentioned in my bio, I have a lot of teachers and, my background and professors. And I think it's something that I've always really enjoyed and have wanted to be a part of. As for my style, I don't really know if I could say concretely. When I was in graduate school, I did have one of my professors describe me, or at least my writing style, as gestaltic. And I remember looking that up and being like, what does he mean? And then I realized, I think it was just a kind way to say I had ADHD, because I was all over the place. And again, I think, my students have communicated this to me. I get excited about a lot of things, or at least some things, like trees. I get really excited about that. And I definitely had that with my instructors, like Dr. Phil Allen, as I mentioned before. He has so much energy, and he would, take us to these competitions. And we even did like these hikes after hours in the evening in the winters, and we'd hike up and do this weird hike around Y Mountain and come down. He had a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and he shared a lot of it with his students.
Okay. Yeah, that's important to have a professor that's so passionate about this stuff. Yeah.
I don't think I realized it when I was young, how precious that was.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. As a 7th generation Utah, you teaching Utah students, how do you incorporate your local knowledge and heritage into creating engaging classroom experiences for your students?
I think horticulture especially is very regionally dependent, right? We have specific trees here, certain growing conditions. So I think knowing an area very well really helps you be a better horticulturist, a better arborist, because you know what are going to be the key pests or, the conditions environmentally. And so I think that that's been really valuable, that I've spent most of my life in Utah. I reckon, I know what that is like. But I think also the fact that I've lived in other countries, and I've lived in Ohio, and I've lived in Washington State, I've lived in California and Colorado, all these different things I think also really bring that I've also experienced other horticultural systems. So I think both are true, that living regionally has helped me know what we see here, but also being able to compare it with what else is out there, I think is valuable.
Okay. And that's what you teach your students?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Besides learning about the subject matter, what unexpected skills do you see that really engage students picking up along the way?
Yeah, I would say relationships with their peers has been one of the things that has really impressed me about students who show up and get engaged. And I know not every person is an outgoing person. There are people who have more reserved personalities, but we have, our classes are enough they have enough time to really talk with each other and engage with each other. And I have seen the students who, are super dynamic, like they make certain classes are like, that's where they make friends that will be with them the whole time they're at USU. And I've really even seen this semester, I have a student who is a more quiet personality. He's a student that he's kind of, I don't know what the right term would be, but like, he's just so subtle and he's in the background and you wouldn't think anything, like he doesn't stand out. And yet this semester, I have noticed him making an effort at different times to reach out and connect with different classmates. Mm-hmm. And I've even talked with those other students, and they've all mentioned the same thing, like how much they've really enjoyed getting to know him and how he has made such a deliberate effort to get to know his classmates, even though he's kind of a more quiet personality. And I think those are the relationships that not only make schooling more tolerable, enjoyable, and rewarding. Those are relationships, because so many of our students are non-traditional. A lot of them will stay in Utah, or, they'd have families, they're going to be here. These are relationships that, if you're a traditional student, a lot of your classmates may be here just in Utah for school, and then they go away and you'll never see. A lot of my peers I've never seen again once we graduated. But because these are non-traditional students, a lot of them will continue to see each other in the industry. And so those are relationships that will potentially get them jobs later, that will be people that they see at industry, conferences. And so those are really, I think those are, relationships that will continue to help them the rest of their lives.
I love it. It's like one of the most important things in life, right?
It really is.
Build relationships. Yeah. I was thinking about my own, like, what unintended benefits did I get? Because I just graduated in December, and I'm like, one of them was in some of my classes, I faced like constructive criticism and uncertainty and discomfort in most of my classes. And that helped me build resilience, but also relationships with my peers, especially, the ladies that were there, because it's such a, it's a difficult program. And we kind of helped each other, build that resilience and build the good relationships, and went out to lunches and supported each other in looking for jobs and finding jobs. So, like, I can relate being on the receiving end of that. As a student, I can relate. Relationships are very, very important. Have you noticed any unexpected mental health perks for students who really get into your horticulture classes?
I can't speak to that entirely, only in that I definitely have heard students talk about, especially in winter, how Utah everywhere in winter it gets cold and dreary and, and by a certain point we're all just tired. And, but getting to go into the greenhouse, and you go in there and it's warm, and especially if it's a sunny day and it's humid and there's plants in there, and there's a definite lifting of spirits to go into a warm, humid environment and to see plants growing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think we have enough good, the microbes that make you feel good in our soil in the greenhouse, but I think working with plants, we always joke that even though horticulturists are in the sun more than a lot of people, we age better just because we're working with plants and we're happy about it. So there's the two things, sun and happiness and soil.
No, that's very true. So are you all your classes face-to-face classes then?
No, but within our program, some of them have to be. So I get to meet everybody in our program at some point, which I really like. I know some programs, because they can use, which I love our broadcast capabilities and the online capabilities, but our program, because some of our courses just have to be face-to-face, I do get to meet all of our students at some point face-to-face, and I like that.
That's wonderful. I think it's really important for students to connect to their teachers too, like that.
I agree. And I feel like having met them face-to-face, even in the future when they're in a different location, now that I know them, that connection is better, even if it's across a camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Having worked in California and Washington before returning to Utah, what advice would you give students about building relationships in class that might lead to unexpected career opportunities, like you mentioned, or geographic adventures?
Geographic adventures. Now, I know it's a little different for our non-traditional students because a lot of them have families here. So it's not like you can be like, oh, you should move. But I do think that if you have the capability, if you're a younger student and you maybe don't have the ties here, or you do have the capability to move, I think it is valuable to move to different states, if possible, other locations. I think you gain different perspectives. I think you get more exposure to different plants and ways to do things. And I think it puts you actually in a better position to negotiate pay and different things if you choose to come back. Utah is a wonderful state in so many ways, but horticulturally, in many ways, it's not like a high-paying state because there's so many people in the field and so many people want to stay here that in some ways, maybe it's the market demand. People, a lot of jobs here do not pay as much as our students would like to be getting when they graduate. But I think leaving the state, and then even if you do come back, it does put you in a better place financially to, because if you come back from making a certain amount, then I think a lot of companies will even ask that, like, what were you making before? And they kind of try to match that or improve upon that.
At least, yeah.
Oh, and you mentioned another one, like Unintended. I remember when I moved to San Diego and I was for my first entrance interview with Davie Resource Group. And I was there and there was some side conversation going on here or something was happening. They were talking about how they needed to hire some more people.
Yeah.
And one of my good friends she was a good friend because she worked with me on the tree crew and we had classes together. She happened to be in San Diego at that moment with her family on vacation. But I was like, I have a friend here, and I was able to call her and she came in and got an interview and she got hired. She became my roommate and
Wow.
So I think sometimes those relationships, those friends, and I knew her and I knew I could trust her. I knew she was, her skill set. And so I could just wrangle her right in.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. Are you guys still in touch?
Occasionally, not as often. Well, I guess I saw her recently. I guess we're still in contact. Not as much as we should be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life gets busy.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. I'm curious. Have you seen students completely change their career paths after getting really involved in your horticulture, arboriculture classes?
I don't know that I've seen that. A lot of our students are already working in the field and they do know, they want to either go the design track or if they're going to go into horticulture or traditional. I will say, and this does make me proud, I think a lot of them get a lot more excited about arboriculture after taking some of my tree classes, just because, probably because I get really excited about it. But I think anybody who starts learning more about trees gets more excited about them just because they are so cool.
Yeah, I would like to take one of your classes to get excited about trees. So our time is is coming to a close. What would you, as your, closing statement, what would you like to tell our students or staff about unintended benefits of student engagement or any engagement in anything, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would say that, the relationships you make, not only with your peers, but with your professors. Students come to me all the time asking for letters of recommendation, asking for, and I've been able to even recommend, people come to me all the time and say, oh, we have jobs. And the more I know a student, the more I know about that student, the better I'm able to help and show, refer them to people or refer other, make connections. And I think the more we're connected and the more we're engaged with people, the more they know who we are, what our strengths are, where we fit best in the world. And so, my sister and I joke about presence. It's like people who like have passions, they're easy to buy presents for because you know what they love, right? And it's kind of the same thing. The more that we're engaged with our classmates, with our professors, the more that they're able to kind of be like, I know what's a good fit for them, and so if they have those opportunities that come into our life, because the saying, like, it's not what we know, but who we know. I think that's where the engagement really comes in, because if people know you and know your strengths, that's what's going to make all the difference sometimes in finding a job that you love.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's been wonderful to have you here.
Thank you.
And talking about things that are really important, like relationships.
Thank you.
Come to class, right?
Yeah, come to class.
Get engaged. Not just in the subject matter, but in just learning, right?
Yeah,
and building relationships.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We hope you loved this episode of the USU Career Studio podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and share this episode with your friends and family.